What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another great episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass, a podcast for the digital agency owner that wants to grow and scale faster while creating the freedom to pick and choose to do what they want. And on today's episode, I have a repeat guest who's going to talk about how can you get away from being the linchpin in your agency where the business does not depend solely on you doing everything, which is everybody's dream so they can create the freedom. So let's go ahead and jump into the show. Hey, Mike, welcome back to the show.
Jason, it's good to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, excited to have you back on. So for the ones that have not heard of you or listened or watched the other episodes, briefly tell us who you are, what you do.
Yeah. So those who don't know me, it means you're a normal person because I don't think most people do. I'm an author, and you can see behind me there, I have all the books I've written. I'm an entrepreneur too, and I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. So I still have 6 companies that I'm an owner in, a shareholder in. And what I do is I research out ways to make my businesses run more efficiently. I like to challenge the common notions. My most popular book is called Profit First. And what I notice is most businesses are started for profitability, yet almost no one achieves it. How can that be? And I found a solution that works for me and hopefully many other people now of taking profit first. And I try to do this in all my books. I look at what the common approach is and ask myself, what's the results? What's the data say? Is this approach really working? And if it's not, what is the better approach? And I try to deploy my own businesses. Once it works, I reveal it in a book and hopefully support others in that journey.
That's great. And I think we're both systems guys as well, right? Like to kind of replace a lot of the things or make things run more efficiently. So when you're looking at businesses, and most of the time the owners, especially agency owners, they are literally the bottleneck. I kind of like to call them, like, you have 20 different lanes of your toll booth, and especially since you're in Jersey, you totally understand this, but they only have one freaking lane open, right? Because everything has to go through the agency. Is that what you're seeing in a lot of businesses as well?
For sure. First of all, that's a great analogy because it does cause this clog, this backup. I call it the superhero syndrome. And what it is, the belief of an agency owner or any entrepreneur, quite frankly, that they are the best at everything. And then they swoop in and try to fix anything and everything. The analogy of that superhero is kind of like back to Batman. I used to watch it in the 70s growing up. And I remember
I can hear the
that
music in my
one.
head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would, the commissioner would say, oh my gosh, the Joker is here. The Penguin would call Batman. Batman and Robin would come swooping in, save the day. But here's what really happened. There was mass, they destroy rooms or buildings. In the modern movies, they knock out entire cities in this combat. And the police department, in that case, became weaker. The commissioner became more dependent on Batman. And that superhero syndrome is what we experience in business. Business owners swoop in to save the day, and they may defeat the villain in the moment, but they leave a wake of destruction, ignoring protocols, taking shortcuts that need to be cleaned up by someone somewhere, or just permanently breaking things that will never be fixed. And our team becomes more dependent on us, saying, oh, you got to save us again because there's no structure. So instead of being a superhero, we need to be that super visionary, someone who has a clear vision of where we want to go, but empowers the team to get there, empowers the structure to be built to get there and get there consistently without playing that superhero role.
Yeah, one of the first systems that I created in the agency playbook was clarity, and it's around figuring out where you need to go in order to have your people make the decisions rather than you make all the decisions. So, what is the easiest way in order to set yourself up as that supervisionary and to give that power to the rest of your team?
I'll give you one word that you can use that changes everything. And it's simple. It's not necessarily easy. The word is shareholder. And let me give context. The word entrepreneur, business owner have become bastardized to hustle and grind. There's a lot of pundits out there that say you got to work like an animal. And we've taken this on. Um, Entrepreneurship was never defined that way. Entrepreneurship was someone who had an idea and took the risk of organizing resources, other people, technology, things to make that vision a reality. They're great organizers. But now it's no, just work your ass off until you die. A shareholder, I own stock as an example in Ford. And every quarter, Ford sends me a profit distribution. I own 100 shares, so nothing big. My check is maybe $15. And I don't say, oh my gosh, I need to run to the factory and earn this money. And I don't. And I don't return it. I don't say I got to plow it back to Ford. I took risk. This is my reward. What we need to see and understand about ourselves as starting a business as a shareholder, perhaps the only shareholder, you've taken on extraordinary risk. You're doing what only 14% of the population ever tries to do, and only 3% is successful in doing in running a sustainable business. So that risk you get rewarded through profit distribution. So you should be making money for your contribution societally. You're giving jobs, you're paying your vendors, you have clients. That's all contribution. And you surely shouldn't be the one working for it. Now, in the beginning of a business, you have to. You're the only resource. But as quickly as possible, we need to extract you from doing. I was saying, an entrepreneur's job is not to do the job, it's to be a creator of jobs. And if you are doing the job, you're stealing the jobs from people who want to do the jobs. Our job is to create jobs. And that's what a shareholder does. So here's the real simple but difficult challenge is starting today, always call yourself a shareholder. When you're out to dinner and someone's like, oh, what do you do? I'm a shareholder of a small business. And it is confusing and weird. But a shareholder is a contributor in sharing in profit, but also division. For Ford, I make votes for who's on the board of directors. When they're building new factories, the shareholders vote. Strategic planning. So shareholders contribute in the strategic planning and sharing the profit. And I think that's what we need to use and do. Using that title, shareholder, starts changing that identity. There's an identity shift. And one day it just clicks and it's like, okay, this is who I am. Stop working in the business because I'm destroying the opportunity for other people to work in the business who want to.
So if the visionary or the owner is the shareholder,
Yeah.
who are the team? Who's the team? Are they shareholders as
Yes. The
well, or?
team. No, I wouldn't use, unless they own stock. I mean, I use shareholder as the puritanical definition that this is someone who's equity in the business. My team is the leadership team. So I'll give you context. We're a very small business. I have 22 employees and I'm one of them. So, we're tiny. We have one president. Her name's Kelsey here, and she's on the leadership team. She gives the kind of the day-to-day direction. So she and I meet and we talk about the strategy and so forth. She gives the day-to-day, and then the rest of the team is deploying out the operations. The goal is to get the business where there's no dependency on the owner. So again, context here, when I travel, admittedly, I go to McDonald's every so often. I've started asking, and I do this regularly, to the cashier, may I speak with the owner. Not because of a complaint, I'm curious about the operation. In 50 instances, there's never been an owner there. And I'm like, oh, that's it. The owner isn't the one doing the work. The owner, they're behind the scenes working on strategy, new locations, and so forth. That's all of our jobs. And to give context, so that's what I do is Kelsey. I have this vision, we talk about it, we work it together, we come a vision, she executes it. As a shareholder, I do have the right to reinsert myself into work in a way that gives me joy. I don't want to just sit on the beach all the time. And when I wrote the first book, some people said to me, gosh, I want my business to run without me, but I don't want to be without business. I love this. How do I reconcile those two? Well, we need to get our business to a point where it doesn't depend or need us. It needs to be able to generate revenue in our absence into perpetuity. If we're at that point and doesn't need us, then we can say, what do we love to do? I love being a spokesperson, what I'm doing with you, Jason, and I love writing books. And so that's my two core jobs in the business now, plus strategy.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained that because I always tell everybody when you start off as an agency owner and then the agencies that are successful, they transfer into an agency CEO. And that
Yeah.
CEO is setting that vision, communicating it often, being the face of the organization, coaching and mentoring the team, and a couple other
Yeah.
roles. So when you were kind of rewriting this book and the owner is that visionary and kind of the business is running without them, what is the kind of the next couple steps for like an agency owner listening right now? They're like, shit, man, I'm doing sales, I'm doing marketing.
Oh, yeah, doing everything. Yeah.
I'm not at doing all the delivery, but I'm still talking to some of the clients. Like,
Yeah.
what would you say would be the next step for them to start thinking about?
So I write about this ultimate test that we can deploy in any business. I call it the 4-week vacation. It is 4 consecutive weeks away from the business with no connection, physical or digital. And what did in my research is I looked at businesses across all industries and said, how long does a business go before it starts repeating cycles? And usually, for most businesses, is monthly. New clients or employees. Perhaps you close out the books at the end of the month. Perhaps you have to let go of an employee. Usually, those things happen every cycle. There's a refresh. So I'm like, okay, the business owner can leave the business for 4 consecutive weeks. Theoretically, now they can be absent into perpetuity. And that becomes a reverse engineering point. The challenge I right up front say to readers is we need to book a 4 week vacation today for a year or two out, but it's got to be on the books. And if that gives you some kind of emotional or physical heart attack, my God, that is the first indicator we have a problem. We have a problem, a major problem. Then there's a big difference between people who want to do work and need to do work. And if you need to do work in the business, it means there's a dependency on you. If you want to do work but you're not needed, that's the ultimate sense of freedom. And if that fortification terrifies you, that means the business needs you. And the day you're not available, the business is compromised. At the end of the day, the 4 week vacation concept is not that you need a vacation from the business as much as the business needs a vacation from you.
I love that you said that. And a lot of people, when I used to coach people, I would tell them, "Hey, take 2 weeks off. Let's see
Oh, it's great.
what breaks, right?
Yeah.
And then you come back
Go.
and you fix it." But I like that you said, in a year you plan out 4 weeks, and
Yeah.
like I could hear people's like chest getting really tight,
Yeah.
listening to you be like, "Oh," like, right?
Is this guy kidding? Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh my God, the business wouldn't do it." And then, but you start there to going, "Oh, well, I'm doing all the
What do I need to
marketing,
do?
I'm doing all the sales. Let me
Correct.
put the right systems and people in place so then I have the opportunity to go do that." Is that right?
That's exactly right. I was out to dinner with Michael Gerber, the author of E-Myth, 10 or 15 years ago. We both keynoted on a main stage in Mexico, of all places. And we went out to dinner. And I remember talking with Michael, and he goes, yeah, his book has sold millions of copies. His thesis in E-Myth is don't work in the business, work on the business. And he goes, it sold a million copies, but there's a big problem. I said, what's that? He goes, the reader thinks that this magical moment will appear one day where you don't need to work in the business. Now you can work on it. If I work in it hard enough for long enough, one day it just opens up and now I'm working on the business. And that is absolutely not true. It's a throttle process. What I try to teach in Clockwork is that our business and us as an owner are not parent teacher, parent child. That's what we often say. Like I brought life to this business. I'm its parent. It's my child. No, no. We are conjoined twins. We share critical organs. We share a body. And the separation, therefore, of conjoined twins is very surgical and very careful, multiple operations in many cases. Starting today, if when we schedule that 4 week vacation a year out from now, starting today, we need to extract one thing off your plate, make sure it's running optimally, extract another, and keep on pulling ourselves out. As we approach that 4 week vacation, we run test vacations. Again, this is not about going out into the beach and doing whatever. You can, but really what it's about is the business learning to break from that dependency on you. And I say in the book too, at the end of the day, once you separate conjoined twins, they may have now separate hearts, but they have the exact same soul. You'll always share a soul.
You know, we just got back from the digital agency experience where the best of the agency owners all get together. And one of the things I challenged everybody to do, and I asked them to do while we were there, is email their team or their people that direct report to them and have them say, what are the things, or two things. What are the things that you do that distract the team? And the other one is, what are the things that you need to stop doing right away?
Yeah.
Right. And like everyone was kind of flooded with all of these different things of going, oh man, I never even thought about that. I thought they wanted me to do this. And then the interesting thing and this happened to me, and I see this when people transform from an owner to a CEO or the visionary of like what you like to say, they get depressed because the business
Yeah.
doesn't need them for the old
Yes.
stuff, but it needs them for the new stuff that no one else can do.
It's a hard reality that I had to face. So one of the benefits of writing books is they're the ultimate accountability measure on the planet. Like once I write a Profit First or Clockwork, I got to live by it. So I wrote Clockwork originally now 5 or 6 years ago. When I wrote it, I talked about this 4-week vacation. I'm like, now I have to live this. I've been testing it, but I'm like, now I have to live this. I went on my next 4-week vacation, and I remember I went to Perth, Australia, halfway around the world to be that far disconnected. I remember sitting on day X, 3 or 4, and there hadn't been a single email. I actually shouldn't have been accessing email. I hacked back into it because I was so bored. There was not a single inquiry on the needs for me or questions. And I remember at first I said, oh my God, I think the business may have burned to the ground, or they don't need me. And you know what was more painful was the fact that they may not need me. I actually started to well up. I'm like, what do I do with my life now? I'm not important anymore. That was the biggest lesson for me. My big fat ego was the thing that kept inserting myself in there. So I had to reframe it. I had to reframe that every time I'm doing work in my business, I'm stealing the job from someone else. Most of the world doesn't want to build businesses or start businesses. We want to work for good, established, healthy businesses. So that's my job, is to create that business and allow other people to do the work if they want to do. The second thing then was to become the true shareholder. When I returned to the office, this was 4 weeks later, I met with our team, the whole team. We were small at the time. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how badly do you need me back? 1, you don't need me. I can go back on vacation. 10, stop talking, start working. We are in dire straits. And the answer was 1.1. They said, we don't need you. We like you, so you're welcome. Howard, and this is the key. Leaving, whoops, there, I lost for a second. Leaving the business um, allowed my team to step up. I was afraid that they thought I was going to the beach and drinking Mai Tais while they're working their butts off. They said, no, no, you trust us through your actions. You gave us the keys to the kingdom. We stepped into roles we never thought we could fulfill. We feel better. And that really got me entrenched in this idea of needing to leave to support them. And I got over that sensation of loss of that the job I used to do day to day, and started embracing this visionary. What can we bring about that's new and embraces more people or supports more impact?
I struggled with that a lot, where when I started building the right systems and the right team to make the decisions, I was like, I literally remember in my agency, I would sit in office and I just pretend to work. And I remember at the time, I was actually using this train software to design this amazing train set in the basement of my house in Georgia at the time.
That's
And I
cool.
felt like I had to be there, but like they didn't
Yeah.
need me to do a lot of the, roll up the sleeves and do a lot of
Yeah.
work. But I felt like if I wasn't there, they wouldn't be working. And
Yeah.
and it blew my mind after I sold and I started thinking back and talking to some of them. They're like, no, man, we got this. Like, just like you were saying. And that's the
Yeah.
ultimate freedom for you. But sometimes psychologically, our imposter syndrome and all this other stuff brings us
Sure.
back in and makes us unhappy again.
You're right. No, you're totally right. So I met with Kelsey. This is about 3 years ago after doing this vacation regularly. And I felt I'd overcome this ego thing that I didn't need to reinsert myself in ways I didn't want to. They were running it without me, but they were allowing me to do what I love to do, spokesperson, writing. She said, hey, we have a new problem now. I said, what's that? She goes, you were feeling a lot of responsibilities, not well, but you were. And now a lot more have fallen on her and some other people. And she said, so basically, we just pushed off the task list to other people, which is fine. But now, if Kelsey leaves and decides to maybe go to another company, all that knowledge goes out the door, or another employee. So she said, I have an idea. Everyone needs to take a 4-week vacation. And I was like, what the what? And that's what we instituted. Every employee at our company takes a 4-week vacation, not at the same time. It's scheduled out a year in advance. It's 4 consecutive weeks. It's a mini sabbatical, and then people it's paid. And so the thought is like, wow, that's the biggest benefit, and it is for being employed here. But the other thing is, every single person now has to have 1 or 2 backups. The work must continue. It has to go on unabated. So literally, it's the best thing for the company when Jenna or Jeremy or Jake, everyone has a J, it seems, or Izzy, when anyone leaves, they have 2 backups in place and we go on unabated. And listen, someone's going to leave at some point. Someone may get sick. Someone may retire. Someone may go to another business. Life happens. And now we have this redundancy in the business. It's like the fire drill. Growing up as a kid, we used to do these fire drills for school. Fire go off, you'd walk outside. The fire bell go off, and you'd walk outside. There was no fire. Well, one day, I think it was in seventh grade, there was a pretty catastrophic fire. The bell went off. Everyone got up. Everyone knew the protocol. Not a single person got hurt because we followed the protocol. This 4-week vacation going through the business is an intentional fire drill or stress test for the business every year to ensure it can go on when a real problem does happen.
I never thought about that of making your employees take that long. But I also, too, it's scheduled out. So then they have a whole entire year in order to plan for that.
The systems, the backups. You should never be dependent on one single person, including yourself. Because and entrepreneurs are the most guilty of it, shareholders, is this fiefdom. We build this little protocol. And it's like, oh, only I can do it. I'm needed. And it forces dependency on us, but then it holds us constrained. And you experience that. An employee who's running the accounting and doesn't tell you all the secrets, they are asserting a sense of control, but also a dependency. So to break that, these 4-week vacations intentionally break that pattern.
So, did you run into any of your employees or team members at the time when you instituted this that says, I don't want to do that? Like, like some of them like to hold on to some of the things they feel more job security. Did that happen?
Yes. So not in our case, but this has happened. If anyone in your accounting department or manages the books or numbers says, I can't do this, that is a big red flag. So just be a heads up because that means someone may be asserting control over your finances and hopefully not happening, but theft does happen. Misappropriation of funds happens. Just be careful. But the case that we had, it was Amy, her name is, and Amy, um, uh, basically an office manager, does a lot of processes. She said, I don't want to do this. And we're like, well, why not? This is such a benefit. She goes, the benefits coming to work. She goes, her parents, her father passed away now, but her mother's very elderly. She has to care for a lot of issues going on. She goes, this is actually a relief for me coming to work. I love the social environment. She goes, this is my vacation. I love being here. I don't want to leave for 4 weeks. So in her case, we had to still extract her roles because there's one day she will leave, she'll retire, something will happen. So we still need to extract it. She is the anomaly where we said, we're not going to force these 4 weeks on you. So she only goes for 3. And that's what we had to do to accommodate that unique situation.
Cool. Is there any other things that, this is obviously the catalyst. The starting point is going, you're going to leave for 4 weeks in a year
Yeah,
or a certain time frame. What is there anything else in order to kind of really get the business to a point where you can pick and choose and you have the ultimate freedom within the
for sure.
business?
For sure. So in Clockwork, I talk about 7 different major steps you got to take. I'll give you a couple of the quick, poignant ones. One is we need to move from a deciding um, management system to a delegation mindset. And most people say they're delegating when they're not. Deciding is where we tell people what to do. And then when they come back with a question, we answer for them and they go do it and they come back with a question. We control all the decision making. Actually, most businesses will never have more than 3 employees because one mind can't handle more than 3 or 4 decision activities for 3 or 4 people. So delegation is not the assignment of tasks, it's the assignment of outcomes. There's an agreement to where we're going and there's a measurement and coaching to ensure we're getting there, but the empowerment is back to the employee or vendor or contractor to make the decisions on the fly to ensure, as long as they ensure that outcome. So that's the delegation mindset. Another thing is capturing processes. So SOPs, I explain in the book, are still relevant, but are so stale and hard to execute because it's tons of paper, no one has time to read. We can go through capture processes. Basically, there's 3 ways to do work nowadays. It's on computer, verbally, or motion, moving things around. And you can record all of those with your smartphone or use screen capture software. But when you're doing the work, record the work, then give that recording to someone. That's your best practice. But here's the trick that most people don't know. Once I assign, say, you sign something to me, and I start doing the work, and then I my responsibility now is actually to record a training of that same work a few weeks later or whenever I'm prepared, because ultimately the best student is the teacher. And until I can teach it, I will show I haven't mastered it. But also, I may introduce my new techniques or elements to it. And when I leave, you've now captured the knowledge as I see it. So we have capture, we call them captures, going on constantly. And I'd say 80% of anyone's work activity is current in these captures in our system. So should anyone leave, we can just go to it and pull it out.
And what are a few other ones, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So perhaps the most important way I haven't touched on is a concept called the QBR. It stands for Queen Bee role, and this is a technique in biomimicry. Look at what nature does, translate it to business. Well, what I found is in a beehive, the most important function is the production of eggs. The survivability of the hive depends on it, and everything else is secondary. Collecting nectar and pollen, all that stuff. If it's not producing eggs, those bees will go back and support egg production. They don't make the eggs, but they'll support the care for those eggs. In our business, there is a singular activity by definition that's the most important. Most businesses don't know what it is. So I teach a process of identify that most important activity. Example is FedEx. FedEx is known for delivering packages on time. Their most important activity is logistics. That has to be prioritized at all times. And every employee needs to know that. Not that they're doing it, but it has to be protected. So FedEx could say, you know what? Screw logistics, their QBR. Let's focus on customer service. The headline will come out next week in the paper saying uh, FedEx doesn't know where a single effing package is, but they're friendly about it. I mean, FedEx will go out of business. Now, if they reversed it, if FedEx says, screw customer service, let's go all in on logistics. Now the headline is FedEx not answering the phone, but every package delivered on time. They may be crippled, but they're not out of business. So we have to know what that core element is and always be elevating it. Sadly, most small businesses think everything's important. And that's why they can never progress exceptionally well because they're not nailing that one thing. And the last thing about FedEx, just because it's timely, this time of year, starting in November when we're recording this, to the holiday season, that exact situation happens. Disproportionate demand is put on the logistics system. They actually pull people from customer service and management and say, get in the trucks, start delivering. And they put two people in the trucks so they can deliver faster. So every season, they actually go through this demand and employees are redirected. We have to be prepared for that. Every employee needs to know what the most important activity is. That's the QBR.
I love that. Well, this has been amazing. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the agency owners listening in?
I just think that this is a throttle process. And when I talk in Clockwork about this, it's not like you're going to put all this effort in, all of a sudden the business is going to switch over. But we do have to start today. We're slowly going to start transitioning. We're going to remove you out slowly and deliberately. I think that's the big kind of essence I want to get across. It's that old proverb, when's the best time to plant a tree? 40 years ago, second best time today. Same thing with Clockwork. It's been nice if you started in the past, but if you haven't, we have to start today. If we wait longer, it'll never serve our business.
I love it. And I presume they can get the book everywhere, Amazon, Barnes and
Yeah,
Noble.
Amazon, Barnes
Okay.
and Noble, every bookstore. The starting point, I invite people to go to my website, which is mikemotorbike.com, which, by the way, is an efficiency technique. No one can spell Michalowitz. It's too hard to remember. That's my last name. So Mike Motorbike is a nickname in grade school, the only G-rated nickname I ever got. So I kept that one. So mikemotorbike.com. You'll get content from this book, my other work too. Plus, I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. You can get those articles there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Mike, for coming on the show. Everyone go get you a copy of Clockwork. And if you guys want to be around other amazing agency owners where you can understand the systems that's working for them, understand what they're doing so you can get to a point where you're scaling your agency faster and have the freedom to pick and choose, make sure you all go to digitalagencyelite.com. And until next time, have a swank day.